Welcome back to another project. In this project, we're going to create an age calculator. As you can see from the final version of the project, we have a container here with the title age calculator with an input of a date. For example, if you click on here, we can choose the date of our birthday. For example, I choose something in 2022. And if you click now on calculate age, you can see the age is calculated based on this date and saying your age is 21 years old. What we want to do next, firstly, we want to create the HTML part of the project, and then we're going to work on the CSS and make this modern design. And finally, using JavaScript, we're going to dynamically create this age based on the input that the user provides. So see you in the next section for the HTML part of the project. All right, let's start our project. In this section, we're going to work on the HTML part of the project. I also put the final version here for our comparison so we know what to do in each step. So the first things we need to do is to create a folder inside your computer. In my case, I want to create it inside my desktop. So I'm going to create a folder. I'm going to call the folder the name of our project, which is age calculator. Once you created this folder, you can just right click and click on open with code to open it with your Visual Studio Code. And here you can close the welcome tab. And as you can see, the age calculator folder is the default folder now for our Visual Studio Code. Now we can just click here on this icon to create a new file, or we can right click and click on new file. And we call the file index.html. So we have an empty file here. We can just use an exclamation mark to have an HTML5 boilerplate. So now, as you can see, we have doc type, which tells the browser which version of HTML we are using. As we are using HTML5, we just need to have HTML here. Then we have the HTML tag, which has the lang attribute, which sets the language of the page to English in our case. Then we have the head tag, which has the metadata tags and also the title tag. The first metadata tag sets the charset attribute, and it is recommended to be UTF-8 by HTML5 because UTF-8 actually contains all the characters and symbols, so the users won't have any problem seeing our website characters and symbols. Then we have the compatibility metadata tag, which tells the Internet Explorer browser to use the most recent rendering engine, which is Microsoft Edge. The next metadata tag is the viewport, which sets the browser's width to device's width. For example, if you're using mobile screen, the width of the browser would be smaller than if you're using desktop or tablet, for example. And here the initial scale is the initial zoom level of the browser, which is set to be 100%. Then we have the title, which is document. In order to see this inside the browser, we can use the extension Live Server. If you haven't installed it, you just open the extension using Ctrl-Shift-X and just search for Live Server. This is the extension you need to install. You just click on it and click on Install. I have already installed it, so I have it in my browser. Then we just click here on Go Live to open it inside the browser. This is going to open it inside your default browser, which is, in my case, is Google Chrome. Now let's bring the website on the right side and the Visual Studio Code on the left side so you can see the changes in real time. You can see the title is document. We can change the title now to age calculator. And you can see that it's changing because I have enabled my auto save. So anytime I type something, this is going to save it and here show it simultaneously inside the browser. After that, we're going to go inside the body section and we add a container. For example, in the final version, we have a container here which has a white background, but the body is gray. So we're gonna have this container by adding a div with the class of container. So if you just write down dot container, this is going to suggest you a div with a class of container. If you press tab or enter, you're going to accept that suggestion. After that, we have an h1 tag saying age calculator, and after that, we're going to have a div with a class of form, and inside this div, we're going to have a label like this, enter your date of birth, and then we have an input, and finally we have a button. So we're going to have a label, and this is going to be for the birthday, and the label is going to say enter your date of birth. After the label, we're going to have the input, but the type of the input is going to be date. So this is going to change the date. So you can just click here and change the date. As you can see, this is the HTML input with the type of date. And for the input, we're going to have an ID of birthday. And also we're going to have a name of birthday. Okay, so we have the input, and finally we're going to have a paragraph with the ID of result, which is going to show the results for us. For example, for now, we just hard code your age is, for example, 21 years old. Okay. So now we have just hard coded these things, but later we're going to use JavaScript to calculate the age based on the birthday. And then we're going to, in the next section, we're going to style it and make it like the final version with the container in the center, with the hovering effect for the button. And also we're going to bring them on top of each other like this. So that was it for the HTML part of the project. In the next section, we're going to work on the CSS part. So see you in the next section. All right, in the last section, we have completed the HTML part of the project. In this section, we're going to style the project using CSS. So we're going to design it like the final version. We're going to create the container and bring it to the center. So the first things we need to do is to create a CSS file. So I'm going to open my Explorer section using Ctrl+Shift+E. And here we create a new file and we call it a style.css. Before using the CSS file, we need to add a link to the CSS file within the HTML code. So we need to go to the head tag and just put it somewhere in the head tag. For example, I put it at the end of the head tag after the title tag. I just write down link and I click on the third auto suggestion, the one with the CSS, which is going to give me a link tag with the relationship between the HTML file and the CSS style sheet with the address style.css for the href. So now we can just start styling our project using CSS. First, we start with the body section. First, I remove the default margin. I set it to be 0. So this is going to remove the default margin. Then we add some padding of 20 pixels, which is going to have some space. Let's change the font family to Montserrat. We need to put this one in a double quote. And if this font is not available, we're going to use sans serif instead. So now we're going to change the background color. We're going to change the background color to a light gray, which is F7, F7, F7. So we have done with the body section. Now let's start styling this container, this div with a class of containers. So I'm going to just write down dot container to target that here inside the CSS. And I just want to change the background color to white. You can just write down white or FFF. Let's add some box shadow. 0, 0 for the X and Y, and 20 pixels for the I think 10 pixel would be nicer, 10 pixels blurriness, and then we can use RGBA, which stands for red, green, blue, and alpha, and we can just choose 0 for red, 0 for green and blue for black color, and for the alpha I just choose 0.2, which is 20% transparency. Now we can see the box shadow here. Then let's add some padding of 20 pixels to add some space inside it. Let's remove the zoom level so you can see the real sizing. And then we're going to have, if we open it now, you can see this is all size. I'm gonna set the maximum width to be 600 pixels, which is this side. And then from bringing it to the center, I wanna add margin of 0 for top and bottom and auto for left and right, which is going to bring it to the center like this. And in the small size, still we have the space because we have 20 pixels padding in the body section. So that's it for the container. Before we forget, in the container, I want to add some border radius as well. So I'm going to add a border radius of 5 pixels, which is going to add a rounded corner for the container. After that, we're going to style the h1 tag here, the heading, which is saying age calculator. So we just say h1. So I'm going to change the font size to be 36 pixels. So I don't know what happened to here. We can use text align center to bring it to the center. And then we can just remove the margin top to 0. And we add some margin bottom of 20 pixels. Okay, that was it for the h1 tag. The next things we want to style is this form, this div with a class of form. So we can target that one just saying dot form. We can change the display to flex to bring everything first next to each other, and then we can change the flex direction to column to bring them on top of each other like this. And then we can use align item center to align them and bring them to the center like that. After the form, we're going to target this label. We have this label here. So we can target that one here by just saying label. And then we just change the font weight to be bold. And we just add some margin at the bottom of 20 pixels, for example. Or 10 pixels. Okay. That's it for the label. And now we're going to style this input here. So we can target the input by just saying input. And let's add some padding of 8 pixels. So we add a space around that. So for the border, I just want the 1 pixel border to be solid. It means that it's just a line. And then we can use the color CCC, which is kind of gray color. After that, we can just add a border radius of, for example, 5 pixels to add a rounded corner. And then we can just set the width to be 100%, which is going to be in the all here. But I can just set the maximum width to be 300 pixels. It doesn't go more than 300 pixels. So if it's less than 300 pixels, it's going to be 100%. If it's more than that, it's going to be 300 pixels. And then I think that's enough for this. Okay. So after this input, we're going to style the button here. I don't know I have added a button or not. So we missed the button actually. We have to add a button here. After this input, we're going to have a button. And the button is going to say calculate age like this. So now we can just style the button by just targeting the button. And let's add some background color. The background color I want to add is 007 BFF. Let's change the color to be white, the text color to be white so we can see it better. And then let's remove the border. We just set the border to be none. And then we can just add some padding in the top and bottom of 10 pixels and left and right to be 20 pixels. And then we can just set some border radius to be 5 pixels. So we make it rounded in a corner. We add some margin at the top of 10 pixels. And we set the cursor to be pointer, so when we hover over it, we see a pointing hand. And then also when we hover over the button, so we can use the pseudo class hover. So we want to have a different background color. For example, 0062 CC, which is kind of darker color. And also we can add some transition on the background color. For example, I want to have a transition of 0.3 seconds, bit ease effect. So you can see it smoother, like a transition on it. And finally, we're going to style this result here, which because it's a paragraph with the ID of result, we can target that one just targeting the ID of result. And then we just say margin top of 20 pixels. We set the font size to be 24 pixels. And then we set the font weight to be bold. And also that's it. I think that's enough for this one. So now we have done with we can bring this one a little bit down by adding the container, some margin top here too. Margin top, for example, 50 pixels. So this is the website we have built. As you can see, we have the title, now we have a style, the input, the button, and finally the result. In the next section, we're going to dynamically get the data from the input that we put, calculate the age, and then show it inside the results section using JavaScript. So see the next section for the JavaScript part of the project. All right, in the last section, we have completed the CSS part of the project. In this section, we're going to create and work on the JavaScript part of the project, and we're going to calculate the age based on the birthday of the person who put the information inside this input. So the first things we need to do is to create a JavaScript file. So I'm going to come back to Visual Studio Code. I want to open the Explorer section using Ctrl+Shift+E, and here we create a new file and we call it index.js, and we just need to add a link to it. Let me close the style.css. So inside the index.html, we need to add a script tag which is going to call this JavaScript file, and we need to add it at the end of the body section. We just write down sc, we accept the script tag with the src of index.js, because they both files are located at the same directory. The address would be just the name of the file. The reason we put it at the end is because we want all these things to be loaded first on the browser, and then we call it JavaScript, because otherwise we don't have access to these elements using JavaScript. So now, first things first, we want to add an event listener to this button, the calculate age. So this button. So we need to bring this button here. So in order to bring the button to here, we just target the button. I can add a button. We can add an ID here. We just say btn for the ID. And here we just create a constant. We call it btn element. And this is going to be equal to document, because we want to target all the browser. And then we just use get element by ID method. And we pass the name of the ID that we have passed to the button, which is btn. Now we have access to the element. We can just add the event listener to it. We just add an event listener. How is this? We add an event listener to it, and the event we want to listen is click. And then we can just call a function after this. We can just call the function calculate age, and then we can just create the function here. We just create a function, we call it calculate age. Just for now, I'm gonna console log. We just console log clicked. So now if we just bring this website to the right side and open the console using F12, and here let me clear the console, I click on calculate age, you see that we are console logging clicked. So instead of console logging, I want to calculate the age based on the input. So first things first, we want to get the input information. So the input here has an ID of birthday. So we can bring it here similar to here. We're just going to copy this using Alt-Shift-Arrow down. I want to change this btn to using Ctrl-D. I want to choose both of them and then just say birthday. This is going to choose this birthday, the ID, and then just put the constant birthday element to it. Now we have access to this. So here first, I want to just calculate the inside what we get. We just say birthday value. We get the value which is going to be equal to birthday element dot value. Let's console log this birthday value. So now if I change this one, for example, to 4th of April 2023, and then we click on calculate age, we just get this 2023 4/4. And if you choose something else, you can just choose for example, January 13, 2006. You can print it here because we are console logging. So we have calculate the value, and then if nothing is added as a value, for example, if the birthday value is equal to an empty string, we want to just alert, please enter please enter your birthday. So now there is nothing here. If I click calculate age, there is an alert saying, please enter your birthday. So we are going to prevent calculating if there's nothing here. Otherwise, if there is something there, we're gonna calculate the age. We just say const age is going to be equal to, we call a function called get age, and then we're just gonna pass this value. Okay, so we're gonna create this function. Let's create this function get age, which is going to get the birthday value. So we're going to create this function. It is very simple too. So we're going to, first thing first, we want to get the current dates today. Because we want to calculate, we need to subtract the birthday from the current date. So the current date is going to be equal to new date. This is the date is the constructor method from JavaScript. This is going to get the date from the browser. So if I now console log here current date, let's remove this. If I put something here, calculate age, as you can see, we are getting this current date, which is even it gives us the time too, 6th of April 2023, 11 o'clock. And then now, based on this one, if we, for example, we want to just get the year, we just say get full year. If we now console log, let's choose some date so we don't get an error. And then let's clear the console, and then we just click on calculate age, we get 2023. So the same method we can use to get the year from this birthday value. So if I console log birthday value dot get full year, and then we choose something here, we don't get an error. So we click on calculate age. We should we need to get this is the current date. We can just get the birthday date too. We need to get it because we need to create a new date, but we need to pass, instead of the date, we just need to pass the birthday value. Now, if we just get the full year by just passing birthday date dot get full year, let's test this one. We get 2023 birthday. But if we choose, for example, imagine 1985. If we just click on calculate age, we get 1985. Okay. So now we have the year of this year, current date, which is here, dot get full year. And then also we have the birthday year. So now we can just subtract that one and calculate the age. So we just say const age is equal to current date dot get full year minus birthday date dot get full year. Okay. now if we console log age, for example, I choose somewhere 1975, we get 48 years old. Okay, but this one is actually not always correct, because based on the months, for example, if you look at the time, for example, now it's April 2023 when I'm recording this video. If the birthday is before the April, you're actually 1 year older than the person who is born after the April. So we need to calculate the months as well. And then we know that if the person is born after the today or before today. So if it's after today, we have to subtract 1 from the person. Sorry, before this date, we need to subtract the time. So I'm going to calculate the months too. So I'm going to say const months. And this is going to be equal. So we just can copy this one. And instead of get full year, I want to use another method, which is get months. Okay. Now we have the months. Now we create a condition here. We just say if the months is less than 0, for example, if something happened and the months is less than 0, because if the current date is less than the birthday date, so the month is going to be less than 0. Or if the months is equal to 0, it means, for example, the current date and the birthday is both April, but now we have to calculate the day. So after this condition, we just say if this one happened, and if the current date dot get date, which is going to give us the day, is less than the birthday date dot get date. So if the month is equal to 0, but the day is less than that, so in both condition, month less than 0 or month equals 0 or the day is less than, we're going to decrease the age by 1. So we can do it by just saying age minus minus. So we have the age, for example, 24. Age minus minus is going to make it 23. So now this is going to solve the problem. And then after that, we're going to return the age. We just say return age. So this is going to be output of this function, get age, and we get the age here inside the calculate age. So now here we can console log age. So let's calculate it. For example, let's choose, for example, 2012, January 6, it's 11 years old. But if this is April, after April, for example, May, let's see the error. Oh, because we want to change the age, we cannot use constant. We need to use let here. This should be a variable. Okay. So now let's do it again. Let's test 2012. It was 2012, January 6 was giving us 11. Now, if we choose after April, for example, October, gives us 10 years old. So that guy is 1 year younger than the person who is born before the current date. So we are getting a correct age. But we want to show it here inside this instead of just console logging it. So instead of console logging, we're going to get this element from the HTML. So we're going to get the element here because it's a paragraph with the ID of result. We can just target that one. We just create a constant. We call it, for example, result element, which is going to be equal to document dot get element by ID, and the ID is result. So now we can just change its text. We just say result element dot inner text is going to be equal to, for example, we just make a dynamic. We just say your age. I added the backtick. Backtick is located on top of the tab key. So we just say your age is, and then we just add a $sign to make the variable. We add the age here, this variable here. And then another $sign because it can be year or years, because if a person is only 1 year old, you should say your age is 1 year old. But if it's more than one, we should say your age is, for example, 2 years old. So I'm gonna make a condition here. We just add here, we just say if the age is greater than 1, just to say years, otherwise say year. And then we add the old at the end. Okay, so if the person is born, for example, last year, February, your age is 1 year old. If it's like a longer than that, for example, January 1990, your age is 33 years old. Okay, so we have accomplished this one using JavaScript. So let's review what we have done. So we have got all the elements using the method called getElementById. We have created an event listener here for the button. If we click on it, we're going to call a function called calculateAge. And here we just get the birthday value by just setting birthday element.value. If the value is empty, we're going to say enter your birthday. Otherwise, we're going to call another function called getAge and pass this value. And we're going to calculate the age based on the current date and the birthday. We're going to calculate the age, and we got a condition if the month is less than 0 or the day is less if the month is equal to 0. We're going to decrease the age by 1, and we're going to return the age, get the age here. We're going to put this text inside the result element using inner text, and we just make a condition to always write down a correct sentences. All right, that was it for creating this project. I hope you enjoyed and learned many things. See you in the next project.